It's Friday in Melrose Mountain. Higher Ground is the name of our place, and it's been a beautiful day, overcast during part of the day and sunshine other parts of the day, no rain. Just a beautiful weather out there, and I'm looking out at the lake and just enjoying the beautiful view. There's at least one family down at the beach swimming, and it's been just warm enough to swim and just cool enough to not want to stay in too long. We are continuing to look at Mark, and we're in chapter 3, beginning at verse 31. It deals with relationships, and it's one of those passages that's easy to take what Jesus said out of context and make it sound like he was hard-hearted. One of the times is when he was a young boy, and his parents had to go hunting for him as they were coming back from Jerusalem, and he said, "Didn't you know I'd have to be about my father's business?" Another time was when he was with his mother at the wedding at Canaan, and he said that he wasn't sure he wanted to do the miracle or take care of the problem that his mother had brought to his attention. And here's a third time when it's easy to think that perhaps there's a problem, but there's really not. It's Mark chapter 3, verse 31 and following. Jesus is teaching in a house, and there's standing room only. His mother and his brothers evidently come, and they're looking for him. And somebody, and with a clear conscience obviously, comes to Jesus and wanting to be kind and nice to his mother and brothers, and also to Jesus, says, "Your mother and brothers are outside and they can't get in here to see you." And Jesus said, "My mothers and my brothers are those that are here listening to the teaching." And that sounds a little callous on the surface, but there was no urgency, no emergency for his brothers and his mother. But what he was saying is, there's more important things than this family relationship. The relationship with God, which Jesus was God in the flesh, is more important than relationship with brothers and mothers and fathers. I was put to the test at a certain point in my life with that very fact when my father, who I always respected tremendously because he raised me by himself, and he was confronted with the fact that I told him I felt God was calling me into the ministry, and he said, "Pete," he said, "you're in your prime earning potential, and you're moving up the ladder with the corporations that you're working with. Why don't you just wait till your retirement age and then go into the ministry?" And it was a time that I had to choose between my father's advice and my relationship with God. And that's what this is all about. This is about relationships. And Jesus was basically saying that the teaching that he was doing as God to his own disciples and to those that were crowded into the house was more important than a nonchalant meeting or and getting together with his brother and his mother. And so we find this relationship being tested, and he's almost as with Mary and Martha, he's saying, she's chosen the right thing, and these that have gathered in the house have chosen the right thing, and it's important for me to continue to be able to teach them. So we need to consider, first of all, the one that came to Jesus. Probably wasn't as intently listening to Jesus' teaching, was more concerned about getting Jesus' mother and his brother to Jesus. And then we consider Jesus himself, who says, "Wait a minute, it's about obedience. It's about putting God first. These that have gathered in this house are putting God first and his teachings first." Now you'll find the same story in Matthew chapter 12, verse 46, and in Luke chapter 8. And there's an interesting couple of informations that you'll find when you read those, very similar. It's a very short passage of scripture. But in Luke chapter 8, verse 21, he says, what's really important is those that hear it and do it. Let me say that again for you. He was teaching in the house, and he said in relationships, it was far more important for those to hear it and those to do it. Obedience. There was no emergency with his mother and with his brothers. And he said, what's going on here inside the house is more important. The obedience and the hearing of the teaching of the word. Our relationship with God has to be number one. And anytime we put anything ahead of God, we're putting things in the wrong order. So as you look at your priorities today, not to neglect your family, not to neglect worship and other things, but your most important relationship is your relationship with God. And it's good for us to keep that in the right perspective. That's your thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.